I want to throw up, I want to cry. All of this comes all at once. If you've ever done a vinyasa flow, you know what I'm talking about. And all I can do, short of running out the door, which I was not going to tap out and quit, all I could do was drop down to my knees.
Good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, NaRon Tillman, and you are with me for another exciting episode of Walk in Victory, where we have conversations to help you evolve your life. Speaking of evolution, there was summer and fall of mine that I had the exciting opportunity to do some um, work where I was able to go to a few of Deepak Chopra's talks in Manhattan. My business partner at the time, and mentoring and yoga instructor Eddie Stern was working with Deepak, and he would, because our work was kind of coexisting, say, "Oh, come with me, Deepak is speaking. Come with me, Deepak is in town." So I would go. One day I was there in Manhattan College, and Deepak was talking, and this is before neuroscience had really taken off in the talk of neuroplasticity and all this other stuff. So we was just talking about patterns and loops in the brain and brain cycles. And he started to quote scripture. And I sat up because it was really interesting to me. And he said the word yoga means yoke. And when he talked about when Jesus says, "Take my yoke," this is not a religious conversation, but I'm just showing you. He said, take my yoke upon you, and that your burdens might be light. He said that word yoke meant yoga. Now, I'm going to try to disprove this. I pull out my phone and I say, "Hey, yoga can't mean yoke." And sure enough, the same word for yoke in yoga is the same, because we have a misconception of what yoga is, because we only align or visualize yoga as the external movements,
Yeah.
where yoga is more far expansive, and even to the point where take my yoke, take my yoga. That's the spirit of the thing upon you. That your burdens might be light. So it got me more expanded in my understanding concerning my personal journey with yoga, training, and mindfulness. And then when I took the meditation certification, I was going through a really bad time. I did my yoga certification. When I did my yoga certification, I had high blood pressure, and I realized that when I was doing the yoga, I stopped taking the medicine. My body, the blood and everything regulated. So that became a part of my personal journey. I was too young to have those, but I was stressed out. And when I did the mindfulness and meditation course through the Chopra Foundation, I learned the power of two words and how expansive they could be if used properly. And this was very essential in my business walk, in my spiritual growth. I am in my self-talk. When you're battling something and you start to bring those negative connotations towards you, I'm always messing up. I can't win for losing. We have these built-in mechanisms of negative self-talk. This track that we play. This lesson helped me to reverse the trend.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what I went through yesterday. It doesn't matter if I didn't stay on course with my diet, if I'm struggling with addiction and I trip up yesterday. What am I doing right now? And that's what mindfulness is. And I think that a lot of times, oftentimes it gets overlooked, that we ought to be present in the moment with what it is that we are doing now, whether it's we're practicing gratitude, whether it is we're spending time with our children. Sometimes we can spend time with our children worrying about how are they going to make out 10 years from now? Just be in the present. I can tell you what, they won't be there 10
Yeah.
years from now in the same place that you are right now. So these lessons are not just good for personal development, they're also good for business development. And
Yeah.
we're going to talk all of these things with our guest today. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm amazing. I'm so excited. I was listening to some of your your previous podcasts, and heard about your mindfulness and your yogic background, and was like, yes, not just with a thought leader talking about consciousness. And also, we talked a little bit about AI, and I know you have some leaders on with AI, but like just to have the opportunity to be with someone that is making an impact and imprint on the world for the greater good because you're inspiring through your own action and your own discipline of growth and contribution. So I'm super excited to be here with you. I just want to witness you and tell you that you're amazing, and thank you for putting this content, this platform together so I can be here with you and we all receive from the work you're doing.
Thank you for saying that. That's very welcome. But you're doing an amazing work, and I'm excited to sit at your feet. We're talking about reiterations, right? So this when first my first tagline was, "We sit you at the feet of the masters," because I feel like this is a master class where we have this dialogue between two people, as if we just met at a conference and we're just talking about our topics. Then, as I evolved, my thoughts evolved around what it is that we're presenting here, right? This
Yeah.
conversation. And now it's like having conversations to help others evolve their lives. So we're having a
Mm,
conversation right now somebody's going to listen, and hopefully we say some things to help them evolve. Now we get to plant the seed, but we don't get to see it grow.
yeah. Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah. We just trust and know, right? The seed
Yeah.
is planted and the
Yeah.
growth will happen.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell our audience a little bit about your background and what it is that you do.
Thank you. So I am fairly new to the yoga journey. It's about 9.5 years, and I say this new because a lot of people have studied for lineages or it's ancestral. It's come into their bloodline. I came to yoga very reluctantly, resisted going. I was having panic attacks. My background is in corporate America. I was in IT hardware software sales. Our client was the federal government. So high performance, high touch, very important mission that we were supporting for these different federal agencies. And I loved it. I was very good at finding what their mission was and what their requirements were, and matching their needs with our technology. So I built a whole career on it from early in my 20s, and I loved it until I didn't. And what I didn't love was the pressure and the inability to actually expand consciously and make contribution on my terms. I was always working for somebody else's value, somebody else's mission. And at one point, I had left a very unhealthy marriage. I was not aware enough that I should probably go to therapy and do some healing. Instead, I threw myself deep into the trenches of more work, more performance. I was conditioned to find my worth in accolades, in doing and performing. So I wanted to climb the corporate ladder and be the next level, more money, better title, more authority, more power. I mean, all the things I think a lot of humans, especially in the US, are accustomed to, that this is what you do. It's the American dream. And after that divorce, I was then having to be the provider for my two kids. So how do you do that? You perform more, you do more, make more. And the thing is the bottom falls out. You can't, we're human beings. We're not human doings. And so therefore, if you're not having, this work-life equanimity, something falls out. Either we get sick mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, uh, and we get I'm not well, the midlife crisis, or the disorder, the disease, the pink slip. Something falls out because we're not able to regulate at that high performance forever. There's seasons for it. So I never knew how to take a break. I didn't know how to take a day off, and I was going through some emotional turmoil with my superior at a company, and because I wasn't in active therapy or really being mentored by someone from a spiritual perspective to actually take account of what I'd been through all of my life, and to go heal and to discover I am more than just this woman that has to hustle to perform to feel like I'm good enough. It's coming from a total lack mentality, but hyper expansive. I think I'm doing it all right. So I start having panic attacks. The body manifests the disorder into a physical ailment that's now a symptom. I have no idea that the root cause is really childhood trauma that was unprocessed. Um, I go to therapy. The therapist recommends I go to yoga. Why do I want to go to yoga? Last thing I want to do is go chant or lay on a yoga mat. I want to go, I was a kickboxer. I would sprint. I knew how to use physical performance to make myself feel better. Why? Because the body would express, it would expand, it would let some of it go. Still unconscious that there was stuff to let go, because if I was beating the crap out of myself, I still felt like I was performing. So then I still felt good. I'm still running on what is just adrenaline, high cortisol. So I'm still wise enough as a, I'm in my mid 30s, late 30s at the time, to listen to the therapist. I take the assignment and I'm going to then go crush it at yoga. I'm not going to go receive healing or actually meditate and get some deep rest and restoration. I'm going to go slay it. I'm going to hashtag every damn day yoga, right? So because I'm a performer. So I go in there and literally no one else in the room is aware I'm going to outdo them in the yoga, but I'm going to be the best. However, I wasn't a yogi, so I didn't have the cadence or I didn't speak Sanskrit. I didn't know the language of how they call out the poses, the asanas. But there was a rhythm to the room. There was a cadence. So you're a musician, you understand. And this yoga was, I call it high frequency. This is my rebranding into a realm of high frequency movement. I believe, based on what I've learned and my own personal experience, that the movement is the medicine. And I experienced it in this class because it is movement and there was music and there's this crescendo, there was this rising up and this building, and I had no idea what's happening. All I know is it gets to a point in the class where it's so rigorous and so challenging and it was so freaking hot. I couldn't keep up, which was on purpose because it's not meant to be a container of performance. It's the art of going inward. And if I'm only my whole life conditioned to look outward to be worthy of the paycheck, the title, the love, the acceptance, and I've never taken the time to reflect inward, and I had no personal relationship with myself. I had no idea who I was or what I wanted because the whole life was conditioned to who can I serve? How can I be better? How can somebody recognize and witness me instead of me witnessing myself? So we get to the high of the class. I can't keep up. I want to throw up. I want to cry. All of this comes all at once. If you've ever done a vinyasa flow, you know what I'm talking about. And all I can do, short of running out the door, which I was not going to tap out and quit, all I could do was drop down to my knees and
Mm.
sink back in the child's pose and let everything that I had held in the container of my external worthiness, I just let it all fall out. So I find myself crying and purging and shaking, and no awareness of what it is or the somatic release or how beautiful this experience really is. There's the next level of shame, overwhelm. I'm now not great. I'm not a great yogi. I'm not outperforming the girl kicking up in handstand next to me. But it didn't matter because it all like just washed away. The room was then finally still. It was me with my breath. It was soft. The energy changed from this heated flow. This fire is the element of transformation. It moved into the element of ether. It was just spaciousness, and I got to tap into a part of me, a version of me I had not yet met.
Mm.
So that sequence of experience of getting me to the highest of highs and the stress that I was trying to maintain and into the complete breakdown began this whole rebirth process for me, this opportunity for me to finally stop looking outside and bring it all inward. And I met myself on
Wow.
the mat, and I absolutely attribute that yoking, that union, that connection to me, that was my life transformation. That yoga literally saved my life,
Uh,
and it began there. So that's how yoga and my whole career change and life evolved into this version of me, based on that beautiful therapist, divinely guided to encourage me to go take a yoga class, to learn how to breathe. And we know that breath is that access point to consciousness.
yeah. It's funny because we don't breathe properly, and since I do, when I first started teaching, I was more so into the movements, the actions,
Yeah.
and now I'm more conscious about getting people to breathe properly.
Yeah.
So I, I teach a portion like Ashtanga yoga. The name of our organization is called Urban Yogis, and we, we our goal was to bring yoga into populations that won't necessarily have access to it.
Yeah.
So which hence the urban portion. But yoga's for everyone, right?
Yep.
Um, and doing with Ashtanga yoga, the movements require us to hold the pose and breathe at the same time. So you have those breaths, those lengthy breaths, box four breathing, um, while we're holding the pose for those 5 breaths, right? But it's different when I'm in a position attempting to hold a pose and when I'm sitting and my body is long and my neck is and spine is neutral, and then that breath activates the brain, gets into the gut brain, and you feel that expansion gets into the lungs. When you're working with people who you're attempting to get to wind down, whether it's from a traumatic experience or something that they don't even realize and they're internalizing, because we can see it, right? They walk in and you see the pent up frustration in their shoulders. What are some of the things that you like to go to first? Is it breath, or is it movement, or is it reflection?
It's a great question. I'll always begin with taking a deep breath in through the nose to drop into the body. I
Mm,
think that we spend most of our day in the head, in the mind, the monkey mind that is full of the comparison and the chatter and the not enoughness. We started the opening of this podcast talking about that I am not, I am this, I am all the things that we think we're not. And the reality is when we can quiet the mind, the chitravitis, quiet that fluctuation and the constant the screaming panic of pulling us outside of what is internal. I think when we would drop into the body, we connect to it through the breath and we feel different right away. It's the embodiment practice. We become present of the soul, of the spirit, of the physical, that subtleness of it's all intertwined. It's not what we're racing with, either regretful or resentful of what happened a few minutes before or projecting into the future and anxiety there. It's presence. You opened with a mindfulness awareness that the breath brings me to presence. And when I can drop into my own presence with a client, especially, then we can co-create that awareness together. So grounding, right? And we start to bring in then maybe the elements of grounding, where I think ether is an element of big expansion, but it's incredibly overwhelming, especially with the high functioning anxiety that most of us are in that state daily. So can we drop in and ground? So we think about bringing element down into earth, feeling that rootedness, pulling the awareness of etherness down, so we're not in that the vata element, the air element is very disruptive. It's despair, it moves, it's like wind, it's like autumn. So we want to drop into earth is a container. If you think about how things, trees root down, plants root down, if we think of rooting down, there's this incredible safe feeling and secure feeling of being held, being anchored. So it's the opposite of this chaos. And so back to, we bring in the breath, we drop down into the body, and then we deepen that awareness into anchoring and grounding in. Then we can start to decide, do we want to go into a bigger breath, more expansion, or more healing? Maybe it's more just inward reflection and awareness there.
it's funny that as you talk about that journey downward, right? And that's the soul where things are really really peaceful, but it's also so expansive. I was talking to my youngest son yesterday about singing. He was walking around the house singing, and my daughter is in school for music, and we have a house full of people that think that they're musicians. And I started to talk to him about, he was hitting a high note, and when I first started to talk about breath work in singing, my first lesson was that all of the high notes are really grounded deeper in our belly. But when you start to sing
Yeah.
without any, if you have no kind of training, you think the
Yeah.
high notes are here, so you try to
Yeah.
go higher, and actually
Yeah.
you're doing yourself a disservice, where
Yeah.
everything that we need is really rooted. deep inside. Now you have this nice mellow bass, or and everything. All of the low notes are the high tones. Those tones are really in the chest and the throat area. We kind of think the opposite way. Like
Yeah.
when we mouth breathe, we're doing
Yeah.
a disservice because we're trying to get away from anxiety, but we're inviting anxiety in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you in Ashtanga, when it's nasal, it's at the ujjayi, right? The lips are sealed, and the moment you open your mouth is when you move into the fight flight breath, right? So
Yes.
we want that deep breath inside, and I think that also when we think about that deep breath, it's the I I physically, mentally, emotionally see that connection all going downward. And that feels so much more connected than disconnected. And that disconnect, that non-yoke, so the yoking is the connection. When we feel disconnected, because you said this in one of your other podcasts, we are a communal species. We want to connect. We want so desperately to belong. We can practice that belonging just with our own breath and reconnecting to the
Mm.
cycle of breath, one with our own. And also from ancient scripture, we know from the Bible that Adam's breath was breathed into him from God, right? God expanded his lungs. And then also in Hinduism, they look at the breath between the breath at the bottom of the exhale before the next inhale is where God flirts with us. So you have two ancient religions that teach us that God is within that breath. And we
Mm.
breathe 24,000 times a day, and we have no awareness of it and no gratitude for it, and we wonder why we feel like crap all the time. Like, hello,
Yeah,
just breathe and connect. And it's so spacious and so gorgeous, and it's the way that we can be so incredibly connected.
and we so cavalierly throw out terms, right? Pay attention, but we don't give a script on how to actually spend the currency to pay for the attention.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
calm down and just take a breath, but we don't show people how to actually take the breath.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving these blanketed instructions, I think that what you do and what I do at times is really, really amazing because it gives people a blueprint now how to pay attention, how to take the breath to bring relaxation and calm. But
Yeah.
what you also do, which I find exhilarating as we're watching the world take this next transformative step, you're training high level business persons, executives who lead stress filled lives, and that's something I'm looking to expand towards too. Uh, how, because of your background and now what it is that you know, do you think that that was by design, that you had to go through what you went
Mhm.
through
Yeah.
so that you can understand the language, and what made you uh, realize that there was a need in this area of life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of it is divinely guided, and we're only ready to understand it when we get through it and then can look back and witness it. Not,
Mm.
I think when we're in a trauma response or in victim state of like, why is this happening? And this is so hard, and I get it. And I've been through a lot of the really bad, and you can live there until you get through and then realize, wow, this was all part of the bigger plan. And we hear it in scripture and spirituality, but I think that's because we want to have hope. We don't want to live in the frequency of like everything is awful, and we're in that low frequency of like apathetic. I don't want to live anymore. Like I've definitely had that thought, but it doesn't stay very long, right? So I do believe I had to go through not just the realms of climbing the corporate hierarchy, also being a female in a male dominated industry. There was about 20% women at the level that I reached. And to have that own battle and understand how to go back and help women to where what I went through and how to have their voice and speak their truth, and also decide, is that what they truly are here to do? Because what I've learned is high performance is a persona. It's not
Mm.
necessarily the destiny. It's not your end result. It's a part of ourselves that his ego has helped to create in regards to a self-defense mechanism through childhood, that whether you're an athlete or a great student, or somehow there was a performance metrics that you learned because you got the feedback from your parents or your teacher or your coach that created this version of you, and where there was reward, which also may have felt like love, we go and get more of it, right? We are
Mm.
very highly rewarded species. We don't like the hard stuff. We avoid that. We like the reward. It's like, if you could go run a marathon or Netflix and binge with pizza and a beer, which would you choose? I mean, most people
Netflix
would
and
not
beer.
choose, right? So if you can understand what the high performers drive really is, I mean, at the core of it, it's actually it's crazy sad to me. It's the greatest fear that we have is that we're not enough. The greatest fear that we have is that we're not lovable. And I'll say most people will show up and present that that's not true for them because they probably have wild success. But if you actually got still enough to search your heart and soul, you might find that there was a little version of you at a younger age that found success felt like love. So if we're living in that never ending, always doing high performance, and if it's costing you love and healthy relationships, if it's costing you health and your wellness, if it's costing you living your truth because you're pretending to be happy, I had the most inauthentic, which would have looked like happiness on Facebook and all the social media. But the truth was, I was miserable. I was slowly dying inside. I had high cortisol, chronic stress fatigue. I had inflammation. I was unwell. I had terrible romantic relationships. I had left an abusive marriage and then dated emotionally unavailable men. Do you think I was happy? But if you ever saw my Facebook, you would have thought, because I would write hashtag best life ever, hashtag crushing it. I mean, I was such a dirty little liar, but I never could tell myself the truth because that would have been too raw, too real, and I would have had to go do the work, which I eventually did. So if we look at the lens of high performers, business executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and we know that it's probably costing them their true health, their true happiness to continue down this path, is there another way? Is there
Mm,
another way? Of course there is.
mm,
And maybe that has to
right.
take the time to redefine what success truly is. So now it's just the success can be on their terms, not based on what they think they need to be to become who they think they need, but who the world told them they had to be, right? Yeah.
So that's a great point, because now we talk about these syndromes, and the one being imposter syndrome, right? Where you may have a person like me who've never been an executive on that level and stuff like that, and I may say, "Oh, I look at this guy. He has the house, the Ferrari. He has all of these. She has this. She has that. She has all of these trinkets and things." Because we are external beings, and that's the thing that flashes at us, right? Like, how can I take these tools and help them out when they seem to be so far away? And we have this concept, and especially in America, that just because people have things, that equates happiness.
Yeah, dirty little liar. Yeah, I'll be honest, that
Dirty
was
little
me.
liar.
I had all the things. You would have thought I was super happy, and I wasn't. I remember at one point during the pandemic really reflecting on that, like, I'm not happy. I wasn't happy when I left my marriage. I was happy leaving my marriage. I wasn't happy in my marriage for many years. I just moved. I just relocated because I wasn't happy where I lived. Like, I now have learned how to really assess where am I and what do I truly want. At the end of the day,
Mm,
we're here for that, famous line, Eminem, you get one shot. You get one
yeah,
shot to go make this
yeah,
epic, not based on what you think it needs to look like. So it can look totally different. But you have to tell the truth. So yeah, and
yeah,
all the people with the external validation in the car, they feel like the more flashy the things, the more is that little version of them crying out for somebody just freaking love me, because they're going at all extremes to get that affirmation and validation and feeling like they're worthy enough. So, can
yeah.
we redefine what success truly is without costing everything? Your health, your wellness, your relationships. And I'm not saying you have to not, you can't work and you can't be an entrepreneur. I'm just saying let's make sure it's on your terms. Bless you.
Thank you. And then we see people spiral out.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're watching this whole Diddy experience, where
Mm-hmm.
in front in front of the camera, we know he had these attitude issues and all that stuff, but really behind, when I hear the things he did, is like, you can't reach a certain level of success without understanding that there's some boundaries,
Yeah.
internal and external boundaries. But if you
Yeah.
surround yourself around people who try to placate you and act as if there are no boundaries, then we develop these. the little monster inside of us becomes greater
Yeah.
and louder. The ego becomes bigger.
Yeah.
The need for success becomes that much louder. The need to
Yeah.
party becomes even greater because now we're spiraling
Yeah.
into one thing is leading to the other. And here, and I'm saying to myself, and I don't want to make this centered around him, but this is a thought that I had, and I do think that this conversation is germane for us to say it. I said, I bet you half the stuff that he's hearing about him on the stand, he don't even remember.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd probably block it out anyway. I mean, I don't know who can
Yeah.
live in a real human spiritual experience. I feel like I say spiritual because I think we're a soul living in a body, all having a physical experience, forgetting that we're a soul, really, right? So that's the spiritual piece, right? So if we're spiritually attuned and aware, knowing that we're here for the greatest expansion of love and connection, like that's literally what I believe that we've come here for. But we've all found from the trauma wound ways to show up in a different way to not have to feel the pain that we were abandoned or betrayed or abused or molested or all the things. There's all the ways that trauma has impacted children that are now adults, high functioning, trying to make life, please, enjoying life or success. But at the end of the day, it comes back to if the work's not being done. Like when I heard he started in his reputation as a young artist was he was angry and had anger management issues, and that's how he got his name, right. Well, I mean, I'm sure that there was some trauma,
Mhm.
and then it manifests into these multi-fractured personas. So he's got the high performance persona, the performer, essentially the business entrepreneur, the mogul, right? And all of that then allowed the disconnection, dissociation of, wait, I'm a spiritual being here to love and connect and be kind and contribute and the great for the greater good of this planet and this collective. But when there's trauma and pain unprocessed, undigested, and then there's this creation of different identities, and he's dissociating from the truth of, wow, I've really hurt people. I've done
Mhm.
incredibly awful, inhumane things, and there's a reckoning happening, right? And let's be honest, I literally will go down at the rabbit hole of watching all of the videos of the court case stuff. I'm
Me
like, oh
too.
my God, like I can't even believe what I'm hearing. Like, is this even like, is this real? Is this AI? I keep asking, is this even real? Or did AI create? Is there a bot creating this? So, because we just don't, we can't even fathom that somebody actually acted out in this manner. And I think really to hurt that many people. And we all, I mean, I still have my daughter just the other day played a Danity Kane song. I'm like, we can't play that anymore. P. Diddy's on there. He was there. Like, we were all huge raving fans of his music and his enterprise and what was produced from that. Which is sad that there's such fallout of like what I think seemed like such a really cool cultural experience from the music and the entertainment of it all to now like this is what was happening behind the scenes and there's
Yeah, and so when we talk about the traumatized mind and performing at a high level, right? So he's performing at this level, and he's producing because he's able to visualize things that
yeah.
everybody in process, but that doesn't take away the fact that this other thing needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Right. And we have that's what happens with even with me. I've reached a certain level of success in my professional life, and there was still things that I was battling internally that I didn't feel adequate to talk about. I talk about it now
Yeah.
because I'm past it, but it can lead to depression, it can lead which can
Yeah.
lead to addiction, and it can lead to disassociation, it can lead to not being emotionally available. And these tools that we have now help us to regulate all of those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're pinning or pointing out that we call the shadow, right? The deepest, darkest things that we don't want anybody to know, especially our enemy, but even our friends, even our
Mhm.
mates, right? Our loved ones, that will typically take to our death. And so when we are creating these personas to mask the shadow, is when if we don't ever go back and deal with the shadow. We need to bring the shadow to the light, right? That's how we
Mm,
neutralize it. That's how we reclaim the authority. We're not the shadow. It's maybe an experience or something that happened to us, but it's not who we are at the core, unless you act out, ongoing, like the P Diddy situation. It's interesting though, because what happened with him, because the environment of those who supported him to expand upon his creative genius, right? Literally genius. And so people would support that and condone and allow the behavior, not discipline him, right? I think whether he got fired from a label or something like that, maybe there should have been some more discipline, or get healthy repair. Somebody could have leaned in and helped save him. But maybe he wouldn't have done the work. I don't know. But why I'm pointing this out is that there's a very famous coach, and he wasn't this is in the basketball field. He wasn't the team coach, but he was the personal coach to literally the most famous basketball player in the world. I'm not going to say names because I disagree with the style of coaching, and I don't want to put out, it's just my opinion, so I'm not going to broadcast it. But the coach to this incredible player found, and he did this repeatedly, and he coached some of the most incredible athletes in the history of humanity. He found their shadow, and what he would do was be able to trigger that part of them that would be either angry or disruptive or dominant or really explosive. For in sports, incredible, because it created this ultra ego persona that would slay on the court, and there was always collateral damage of it, but they didn't care. It's almost like in capitalism, like sometimes companies just don't care who they hurt if there's more money coming in, right? So this coach, why I don't want to mention him is I don't want to popularize what he's doing, because I honestly feel there was revenue created and there was major sports revenue and streams and money made and history change. Cool, like that's really cool. But the cost of what? This specific athlete I'm talking about, if you see him today, he's retired and he looks awful. There's like no soul in his eyes. So he's spent his life dominating and being conditioned by a coach, a personal coach who taught him how to find that shadow, pull it out, like the bad version of us, the bad guy's out, and he's slaying and he's dominating and he's crushing it, but never brought it to the light to make peace with it, to heal it. And that specific player's demon shadow came because he believed his father didn't love him.
mm,
So he taught this man how to perform based on the deepest pain of his life, his biggest heartbreak. And instead of just getting him, maybe I imagine he probably would have been an even better athlete, because he would have been performing because the joy of the performance of the sport, not because he had to beat up the part of him that felt unworthy from his childhood. Like it's a mess. And so
yeah,
hence why go ahead,
no, I'm
keep
sorry,
tracking.
because I'm glad that you brought that up because I just went through this internal because this internal struggle that I was having with myself, right? And I realized that my success was always fueled by having an enemy. So when I didn't
Mm,
have an enemy, I would create enemies because I needed. I always claimed to be self motivated. My motivation was to try to prove this person wrong.
yes.
So now you're creating enemies in my team, creating
Mm,
enemies in my home. Oh, this person don't believe in me. I'll show them. And I had to
yeah.
really, really work hard on that. First of all, I had to identify it.
Mm,
I had to identify it. I'm like, well, how come you can't ever really find anything praiseworthy to say about people that you always got to have a fight with somebody, right? And I had to really work on that. And that's so as I began to unravel, I was like, because as a child, I always felt like I was the smallest one. I had to prove I fought every day and stuff like that. So
yeah.
now I had to rewire all of that information,
Yeah.
and neuroplasticity and all of these things are really, really amazing because you can go in now and reprogram doesn't change that what happened, that I did have enemies when, but how do I now assess it? How do I now um, input that information? Let me
Yeah.
take out the fact that I needed the enemy to show that them that I can be this and I can be that. And now, because now when there's no more enemies, who do you turn against?
Yes. Amazing. It's such freaking amazing awareness that you have. Because what was it costing you?
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. So when we have the shadow and we don't bring it to the light, and you brought it to the light, now there's joy. Now you don't have to have those battles. There's two things that come to mind of that is like we have the lesson that we need to learn, and we continue to get the lesson until we learn the lesson. Like the villains will keep
Mm,
showing up in your life because you needed them. You were casting these villains to trigger you to finally go, I'm the problem. You
yeah,
you don't need villains anymore to prove like and at what cost was it to have to continue to prove you're already enough? Like you're pretty awesome, right? Like you're a super cool cat. And why do you need to keep having drama around you to say because I think that's part of the receiving. Like we're so fearful of receiving that we are enough. Because if we already
mm,
knew we were enough, we where would the drive be? Because the drive came from the lack or the scarcity or the fear.
yeah, yeah,
So we have to learn the lesson until we're done with that lesson. And then also the creating those versions of ourselves that are the villain, the victim, the we're always looking for the way for the people that are in our life to love and accept us on our terms, and we're not necessarily giving them the blueprint, right? When we don't do the healing and we have this trauma that like you said, it kind of came from childhood about being the small guy, right? So you get this edge on your shoulder and you're like, I gotta prove him wrong, look at me, I'm not a small guy anymore. Ian Levan Sant says that's that repeating the story in what we think is the original form, which it's probably not because our brains changed over time, so we probably don't remember it exactly, but we will swear to our death that this happened the way that we perceived it. And again, we were probably little and we're still living a little boy's trauma in a man's body.
yeah.
And Ilan Levansant says that there's still a feedback that we're receiving. So when you tell the story to someone and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you and this happened to me. And then it's literally like we're getting high together. We're getting this high off of trauma
Yeah,
and we keep repeating the story and then it gets sometimes I don't know if you did this but the stories get a little inflated so it gets a little
yeah.
bit more traumatic because then we get a bigger response of like yeah but then this happened and we're just addicted to the story which puts us in a victim state because we're powerless over that story so you change the story not that it didn't happen maybe it was a little different than how we rehearse it but we change it because we're worthy of a new story it happened, but we don't have to be defined by what happened to us. We get to change the definition going forward. So we honor it and we regulate. I'm different now. I've learned, I've grown, I've healed. We're still in the trauma of it. We can't heal from it.
We see that even in the case where people, not just this case, but when people are asked to recall something that happened several years ago, and they're saying, "Well, 7 years ago you said this. It happened this way."
Yeah.
Well, what happens when we tell the same story over and over? We add psychologically. We add information, fill in gaps to make the story better than what
Yeah.
it is. We become our
Yep.
own action writers and directors and
Yeah.
directress. And every time we tell a story, we add chains of events, or add some action, or add some body language, or because that's the way that we live.
Yeah.
We want to fill the gaps in, and then it don't be someone that needs to be the center of attention. Oh Lord.
Yeah. I mean, we get grandiose because we get attention and when we're still seeking love and affirmation and we're getting it even from a trauma story, it's still love and affirmation. So we think until you
Yeah.
get to the other side and you realize what love and affirmation really is on your terms,
Mm.
not from the empty vessel, right? The wounded version of us. It changes. We get to be adults, not in active trauma. We get to be adults making healthy decisions based on this desire to love and connect because we're then whole, no longer feeling like we're broken.
So why are you podcasting? What is your aim? What are we doing?
For me or for you? For our
Yes, for you.
call?
No, for you.
Yeah,
Why?
so I just want to help get the message out that here's something profound that happened to me, that suffering is a choice. I battled with that for a long time. I'm like, why did all these things happen if suffering is a choice? Buddha says it, that we need to decide and have discernment over how we are showing up emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So if I can choose to suffer, or if I can choose to thrive or heal or be lighter or freer from the pain of the past, then I get to change my story. And it's a very big role of understanding that you are the conductor of your own life. Nothing happened to you that you aren't capable of moving through. Period. You can get the tools and the resources. And I don't mean if there's a child in an active abuse situation, like my heart goes out to children that are in abuse. I don't mean that as, I mean, as an active adult, if whatever you've been through, you can heal through it. But the only way through is through. You can't just continue to either one, pretend it didn't happen and dissociate, or be angry or dissociative or in active addiction trying to numb it out, right? We have to take responsibility. And my path to get to that place was through surrender. And the last thing I wanted to ever do was surrender, because I felt like that was so helpless and put me in a victim state. Like, Mel Robbins says, nobody's coming. Nobody came. And even from a spiritual perspective, like as much as I prayed, Jesus didn't show up at my door and maybe like, sister, like you are healed. He has absolutely been an active participant and savior in my life in many more metaphysical ways than ever physical. But what I was looking for was a savior. And, the news flash, that's what we do. We have to be the savior of our own selves. And by making new choices, by setting up boundaries, by doing the deep work like breath work, presence, mindfulness, yoga, and bringing that to spiritual consciousness, which brings us to this high performance leadership. Like, you can change your heart, your mind, your life. And what I love about working with executives and leaders is the impact is profound. So I'm not just helping one person, I'm helping the one person that maybe has the top of an entire ecosystem of people that work with them, and it impacts that community, that company, and that will affect the children of that family. And it's ever flowing. It's never ending. It's the ripple effect that I think we all get inspired by, right? So that's what I'm here to do through breath body practice, through movement as medicine, through masterminds, through workshops, through podcasts, through conversations. It's not one thing, it's everything. It's all interconnected.
There you have it, everyone. Not only do we sit you at the feet of the masters, we sit there so that we can have conversations to help you evolve your lives. We don't ask you for cash apps, Venmos, or any of those things, but what we do ask you for is that you hit like and subscribe, and that you share this conversation. These conversations will not only help you, but they can help somebody else reach new heights in their life. So all of Jennifer's information is in the description. All of my information is in the description. If you want to reach out to us, then you go ahead and reach out. And as we continue to grow and develop, we want to see you be the best version of yourself. So don't walk with your head down. Don't walk making excuses. Don't walk feeling inadequate. Together, Jennifer's now a part of the Walk in Victory family, and we all walk in victory. Peace.
Thank you.